It is my great pleasure, and it's not with a little bit of pride that we present Alexandra Polivanova from Memorial as today's speaker. My name is Jesper Roine. I'm Deputy Director of SITE for the event today. My role today is going to be passing around the mic, so chairing this event, but I've asked someone with much deeper roots in Russia to welcome Alexandra and to introduce Memorial as an organization. So please, Michael Sohlman, please.
Oops. Thank you, Jesper. The human rights organization Memorial was established in 1987 by human rights activists in the former Soviet Union, who wanted to ensure that the victims of communist regimes' oppression would never be forgotten. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Andrei Sakharov and human rights advocate Svetlana Granushkina were among the founders. Memorial is based on the notion that confronting past crimes is essential in preventing new ones. On this point, I personally, if I had been asked, would have added the name of Arseny Borisovich Raginsky, who was also one of the founders and was absolutely decisive for the continuation of the initiative. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Memorial grew to become the largest human rights organization in Russia. In addition to establishing a center of documentation on victims of the Stalinist era, Memorial compiled and systematized information on political oppression and human rights violations in Russia. Memorial became the most authoritative source of information on political prisoners in Russian detention facilities. The organization has also been standing at the forefront of efforts to combat militarism, promote human rights and government based on the rule of law. When civil society must give way to autocracy and dictatorship, peace is often the next victim. During the Chechen wars, Memorial gathered and verified information on abuses and war crimes perpetrated on the civilian population by Russian and pro-Russian forces. In 2009, the head of Memorial's branch in Chechnya, Natalia Stemirova, was killed because of this work. Civil society actors in Russia had been subject to threats, imprisonment, disappearance, and murder for many years. As part of the government's harassment of Memorial, the organization was stamped early as a foreign agent in December 2021, the authorities decided that Memorial was to be forcibly liquidated, and the documentation center was to be closed permanently. The closures became effective in the following months, but the people behind Memorial refused to be shut down. In a comment on the forced dissolution, Chairman Jan Rachinsky stated, "Nobody plans to give up." And indeed, Alexandra is a member of the board of Memorial and is a highly active member of Memorial. And just a personal comment. Memorial, I don't know, wants to tell about the whole world, but it's an NGO with an extremely important role. It has the keys to the future of a civilized Russia. Because without fulfilling the program of Memorial, Russia will never be a sound civil society. And therefore, it's a great pleasure to see Alexandra here. And I don't know whether we should use English or Swedish. Any foreigners here who need English? Otherwise, Alexandra will give us the pleasure of listening to this her Swedish. Very welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for organizers and for everyone for coming. And I'm happy to meet you all. And I represent here a network of organizations from Russia and beyond, which are united by the common word memorial in the titles. And memorial emerged as a social movement in the era of perestroika, the main achievement of which were the so-called glasnost. It means freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the press. And it was that along with these freedoms came the freedom of memory, the memory of terrible crimes, of the terrible experience the terrible experience of before perestroika, each family could experience and comprehend only independently. So they talked about it only in a family circle, but now it came out in the public. And a lot of books, memoirs, letters, testimony appeared. And it was then that the memorial public civil movement began, whose tasks were to create a memorial complex, a public archive, a public museum, and a library in memory of the crimes of the Soviet state against society, against people, against human rights. And for more than 30 years now, historians, researchers, and activists from memorial have been collecting private archives and worked in state archives, collecting millions of data and compiling lists of those shot, arrested, and also lists of NKVD employees, NKVD, VCK, KGB, and so on employees. And then we tried to make all this data public in various ways, engaged in memory activism, like I like to call it. And almost at the same time, back in the early 90s, it became clear that crimes do not end, that the state continues to violate human rights, even if probably on a different scale. And then the Memorial Human Rights Center arose, whose task was to monitor human rights violations in contemporary Russia and protect human rights as they could. And they monitored all crimes committed by the Russian state in Chechnya from 1994 until the mid 2000s. They made the list, they still make the list of political prisoners in modern Russia, which appeared in the 21st century and is growing now every month. And Memorial Human Rights Center, Memorial Organization, all memorial organizations of the whole network monitored pressure on civil society, restrictions on freedom of assembly, freedom of association, elections, pressure on the political opposition. And it was these two organizations, Memorial International and Memorial Human Rights Center, that were liquidated by the Russian state at the turn of 2022, on December 28, 29, the court of the first instance issued a decision on liquidation, and on February 28, 2022, there was a decision of the second instance. And if in December 21 we still pretended that we believed in the chance of justice, that one of the judges would make a fair and lawful decision, then on February 28 there were no illusions, even rhetorical. Those two of the legal largest legal entities of Memorial were liquidated, but nevertheless other legal entities that were members of the network of International Memorial, as well as informal associations in Russia and other countries, they remained working. If you listen to Vladimir Putin's so-called historical speech on February 21st, so you probably will understand better the prosecutor Zhafiarov's accusatory speech at the trial against Memorial, and it will become more understandable. Prosecutor Zhafiarov said that Memorial, speculating on the topic of political repressions of the 20th century, creates a false image of the USSR as a terrorist state. And the second quote is, why no, we, the descendants of the victors, instead of being proud of the country that won the terrible war and liberated the world from fascism, are we being offered to be ashamed and repent of our, as it turned out, hopeless past? Probably because someone is paying for it. So why do all these, I don't know, concepts matter? Because it's in contemporary Russian state, it's somehow dangerous to really say who the Nazis were in Germany, what their intentions and crimes were. It's important for the Russian state to maintain both the fake image of the Soviet Union and the fake image of Nazi Germany, the main crime of which was the attack on the Soviet Union, according to Russian imperialistic concept. And it's not necessary to analyze how the Third Reich was organized and its motives. So, as not to start analyzing what it was like and who is like the Nazis today. Why does the prosecutor say that someone pays for Memorial? Why are they so afraid of Memorial and other public organizations and independent media? Because the whole structure is built on a very big fake and misinformation. All the support for Putin in Russia, not because people really support an aggressive war, but because people are misinformed. Poor, unfortunate children of Donbass who really need help are shown on TV every day, all the day long. So therefore, Russian soldiers go to the war to save children. And yes, who is going to say that it's a bad idea to save children? Why does the Memorial's work on working out the past is still relevant even now after February 24? It's a question for us too, but I think that it's still relevant because these crimes are still ongoing. They have not been solved. Stalin's crimes consisted of two things: murder and imprisonment of people, and concealment of the truth personally from relatives and from the society. A crime becomes a crime when we know all the circumstances of the place, time, and action. In the case of the crimes of the Stalinist regime, it's necessary to know the names of the victims, the names of the decision makers, the date, time, place, and not least the names of those who confronted it, who were opposed, who tried to change the situation somehow, who had the courage and the freedom to resist in a country where there was no freedom at all. But beside the fact that all this information should be clarified for the database, it should become public domain, public reflected by the society, which is not yet. And all this data, these so far it's this socially important information. It concerns the whole society, and the society should have access to public information in all details, not the whole fact that yes, there were Stalin's repression 30s, 40s, 50s, but then it ended up. So it should be effect of public opinion at all. And what have we done wrong, and how should we change our work after February 24? In addition to the external context, and that it's extremely well, let's say, uncomfortable to work as a Russian civil NGO in Russia today. Well, I think that if earlier we were engaged in the history of totalitarianism in our own country against our own people, then February 24 showed that we were poorly and little engaged in the colonizing imperialist legacy, imperialistic experience of the Soviet Union. We have not talked enough about the double oppression experienced by minority peoples in the USSR, who, in addition to basic human rights violations to, well, human rights to life and freedom and so on, they were deprived of identity, deprived of the right to their native language, culture, self-determination and sovereignty. We talked even less about the problems of internal colonization, that Russia has a, well, you know that Russia has a big city as Moscow, well, okay, St. Petersburg to be also, but Moscow centrism colonized the regions, subjects of the Russian Federation. It's so important to carry out all this work with the past, because it's still connected with identity and values. I think that in the coming years in Russia, understanding ourselves, searching for ourselves, searching for identity is possible only through denial. Who we are. We are not the ones who attack other countries. We are not those who kill civilians in other countries, destroy the household infrastructure of the hospital and maternity hospitals and so on. We are not those who do not recognize subjectness of the other countries close to our borders or far away from our borders. We are not those who persecute for protests and so on. And we need to look for this new identity with not with some other Russians, but with the very same Russians who now live in Russia. And in this Russia, Putin is a part of the problem. Yes, it's a key problem, but not the only one. Where does Putin find his support? These are Russians, my fellow citizens. Unfortunately, the situation of the war has thrown the whole society back very much. In addition to the fact that people are dying in Ukraine, in addition to the fact that Russian soldiers are dying, and well, apologize, but it also seems to me a tragedy. In addition, the whole society in all generations is becoming permitted with legitimized violence, militarism, isolationism, muscularity, and patriarchy. And it's even much more difficult to overcome this in some ways than to stop the war. This will happen one day, but the society still will be the same. people are wondering all over the world, why do these Russians support the war in Russia? I'm not a sociologist or an anthropologist to answer this question academically, but I see that Russians do not feel that this is their war. This is Putin's war, and there is no connection. There have been no elections in Russia for a long time. No one has really chosen either the president, the ruling parties, or influenced any other decision. So people watch the war on TV as a football match, and they support our national team. Well, because everyone supports the national team, and well, like you are looking for football or ice hockey or something like that. Yes, but hopefully the situation is changing when Putin has run out of the contract army, and the war has come to every family somehow, yeah, in one way or another. It's often said that in Russia, well, that Russia has a bad historical memory. I don't agree with that. In Russia, everyone is too good with historical memory. People remember too well what will happen if they protest, if they react, if they have their own, well, reactions. And in addition, after February 24, civil society, both inside Russia and in exile, is very depressed. Society has a very low self-esteem. And that is why any statement of protest, any position of protest is so valuable. We don't know how to stop the war. We know for sure that in order to stop the war, Ukraine needs to be supported very consistently and at all levels by all countries of goodwill. And we have to do it better than it was done in 2014 during the, well, then when the occupation of Crimea started. Solidarity is needed at the level of states and at the level of society. And of course, efforts are needed within Russia. We don't know what will become the trigger that will turn public opinion around. Anything can become this trigger any day. But so, since this trigger is unknown, it's very important to encourage and to support all anti-war initiatives and efforts. There are no useless efforts against war. These very small and thin streams of protest will merge into one big stream when society begins to become a real civil society. It's of course a very great honor for Memorial to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, but it's too great an honor to get to receive the Peace Prize in a year when there is no peace. It's too great honor to receive it in a row with Alice, on a par with Alicia Bialyatsky, who is really in prison, and together with the Ukrainian Center for Civil Liberties, which continue their work under Russian bombs. It's a big challenge to receive such an award this year. I perceive it as an encouragement to civil society in Russia. The memorial is only one of the major actors of the civil society, and encouragement that society is offered to get out of the depression and show more anti-war initiative. The Nobel Prize showed that these efforts in Russia are visible from the outside, and there are no useless efforts against the war. Okay.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. I know that there are many in the room who know a lot about Russia, who feel
much more than me.
No, but I think I know one person who would like to start off with a comment, Benedicta?
So I'm Benedicta Berner, and Alexandra, thank you very much first for being here. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts about, as you said, a very complicated situation. I was chair for 12 years of civil rights defenders, and we started working with you and supporting you already in the mid-90s, when we were the Swedish Helsinki Committee. And Misha mentioned Natalia Estimirova. She was really our partner in Ingushetia in the Northern Caucasus, and we even in our office actually have a room called after her. So we've been really working with you in particularly Northern Caucasus on all the legal issues for so many years, and I think you've done just absolutely fantastic work. What I wanted to ask you, I mean, you very sort of clearly said how complicated the situation was, and how, you know, how in a way that this war was perceived in the public opinion. I guess things are starting to change now with the mobilization, a little bit at least. I was wondering, first of all, how do you feel what kind of perception is there of memorial in the Russian society? And also I would be very interested, because we are going to continue to work with you, but we know that you are in the middle of big changes and reorganization after the liquidation. And could you say a few words about, if you can, about how you sort of plan to sort of reorganize your activities? I mean, I met with Daniel Beilinson, you know, of Ovid Info, because we gave them the Human Rights Award last year in Paris, and he said that you have a little branch there in France, and it would be very interesting for us to know how you sort of plan your reorganization.
Well, first of all, I just would say that unfortunately I have never met Natalia Estemirova. So she was killed 2009, and I came to Memorial 2012. So, but yes, her daughter Lana Estemirova will be one of those representing Memorial in Oslo next week. And regarding your question, yes, it's how Memorial is the perception of Memorial in Russia. Yes, it's difficult questions. It's very controversial. For example, well, me personally, I'm driving a project, Topography of Terror in Moscow, and we are organizing guided tours in Moscow in different places connected to Stalin terror and later terror, and also some thematic like memorial events, in Ukraine when it was Ukrainian Day of Memory and so on. These events became much more popular than they were before that. A lot of students, a lot of young volunteers in Moscow are coming to join us and to visit our events, and they join us and they become new volunteers. We try to save the security and to keep the insecure and to keep the safety. That's why we cannot probably show them openly, but we have a lot of volunteers in Moscow. But at the same, and not only in Moscow, in different cities as well. But at the same time, people are afraid of Memorial, and the fact that Memorial was liquidated is perceiving like Memorial was prohibited. It's prohibited to collaborate with Memorial. It's prohibited to name Memorial somehow, even if, somewhere in in some region in Komi or after Gulag's regions of Russia, if they take if they take a comment from one of memorial experts about Gulag history or something like that, they don't want to mention memorials, so they just say, well, Igor Sajan, historian, but they don't name that he is historian from memorial. So it's like a gray zone somehow, so memorial semi-exists, semi-doesn't exist. But probably somehow this gray zone helps us to still continue our work, well, both legally and underground somehow. And even before the liquidation process, Memorial International was a network. It was a network of different organizations and of Memorial in France, in Germany, in Ukraine, in Italy, and Czech Republic. So thanks these organizations, we survived like bureaucratically, like receiving money, receiving support from different foundations. Well, even well, okay, and organizing different activities, which was not so secure to organize in Russia. And a lot of people, I would say that 75% of our colleagues left Russia and they continue their networks from Lithuania, Germany, Georgia, well, Sakartvelo, and other countries. And well, it's safer for them, for sure, when, well, I don't know, you know, the list of political prisoners, they do it from abroad, but we spread it in Russia. Well, it works.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Alexandra, and congratulations also. Happy to see you here. It's a special feeling to see a former colleague being a Nobel Prize winner. A very practical question. The organization has been liquidated, as they say, in Russia and permanently closed. What has physically happened to the collections in this museum of yours, which Roginsky once showed me, this fantastic collection of items and drawings and things, and also the absolutely, the very, very important library. I hope that at least it is not being physically destroyed.
Yes, we still conserved all our collections, so it's still with us, but unfortunately it is not public anymore, so we cannot get access to the files to people. So before that we had the reading room and the exhibition hall and the conference hall to, well, people would come to could come, well, to read documents and to discuss and to we could organize exhibitions. Now this is impossible. We are in process to get lost our to lose our house. But these collections are in a safe place, but we are working on digitalizing them and not to just make a mix of everything, but to make a digital archive, a digital copy of the whole archive. So with the structure, with the catalog, with the interpretation and well, search system and so on. And it was something else you asked about the archive. Yes, but the library is the only one thing we left to the prosecutor office. So they are going to read all these books when they when they go to receive our house. Well, the idea was, well, for sure we the most I don't know, rarity books we conserved, but it's impossible to save the whole library, and almost all the books are available in digital forms or in other libraries in Russia or other countries. So it's very silly. It's very trist for us, and especially for, I don't know if no one, any one of you knows Boris Belenkin, who was a librarian and who worked on this in 30 years, collecting these books. But this is for persecuted officers.
Hello, my name is Rickard Westerberg. I'm a researcher here at the school and economic historian, and have a very big interest in history. Thank you very much for sharing. Very interesting and a bit depressing, of course, but great to have you here. So 2 questions. When the Russian state, when it has decided to rewrite history in Russia and make another picture of Russian history, how is that done in practice? Does it happen organically, or is there like a group of people at, for example, the Ministry of the Interior that decides on this is what the history will look like from now on, and then that is sort of implemented within the school system as such? So that's my first question. And the second question is, one of the things that really strikes me now with the war in Ukraine is the level of brutality among Russian soldiers, and you see what's happening behind the lines with torture chambers and how they go after civilians and all of this. Is there a connection, you think, between the loss of history in Russia and the level of brutality from the Russian state? Thank you. Was it clear, or should I?
Yes, I'm not sure I can answer the second question. Sorry, well, it's out of my expertise. So I have read some articles about it, but
Sure.
Sorry, sorry for not answering. Well, regarding the first question, I guess that there is both formal and informal concept of the history narratives, that the state is much more important than people are, than personalities, individuals, and human rights, and so on. So this is a broad concept, and then you have a Russian historical military society led by Vladimir Medinsky, who is one of the authors of the Russian narratives. And then you have in the same frame, you have school education, school books, and so on. Exhibitions, everything, and also advertising on streets. And you see everywhere, in front of 9 of May, you see everywhere military propaganda of the state, and the state is, it was the state who won the war and so on. And I guess that, so it's not like Putin or Medinsky that they really love Stalin. They just accept Stalin as a model of the image of the very important, dominant state, and I had this Stormakt, great power, yeah. So it looks like this. And sorry for not, I will probably answer your question later when I come forward.
Okay, so we have a question from the audience online also. So
okay.
There's one person asking, how do you see the unification of the anti-Putin forces within and outside Russia, if any? And also big thanks for everything.
Yes, what do you think? Is it Ukrainian army and all the EU countries and all the countries of goodwill and Russian activists? Or you mean just Russian activists from Russia and activists in exile? Yes, I guess that I don't think that just one element will be crucial. I guess that everything should be like somehow to turn out the situations so that those who support the war will be in minority, and so it will be not, well, probably somehow some of Putin's supporters will it will be more comfortable for them to not support the war and to become anti-war activists somehow. So I have no answer. If I would have, probably we could make something with that, but I guess that we have to support everything, which is everyone who is against the war somehow, even if it's a small, invisible initiative.
So maybe if I can, just as a follow-up question from my own side,
Yeah, for sure.
what would be your advice to people who want to help from the outside? I know that there's a lot of discussions now in terms of, you know, how should we view exiled Russians trying to work? Is that, you know, does that really reach into Russia? Can we help people in Russia still? How should we do that? I know that there's a lot of, you know, people who want to do something, but they're somewhat uncertain. What would be your advice?
I guess that the first thing is to support Ukraine. And the second thing is, well, everything happening in Russia is happening somehow in a black box, but it's important to be, but thanks internet so far, and thanks well, other things, it's still possible to get information about different initiatives and to make more visible those activists who are those initiative, probably not only activists, like active activists, but like initiative against the war. And yes, well, I am still in Russia, but a lot of my friends and colleagues, they are in different countries right now, and it's not too easy for them neither. So because well, it's very difficult, like with visas and other status, and with money and with bank account, and well, it's not so easy to be Russian right now. And even if they support Ukraine, but it's not so easy to well, to talk, to conversate, to communicate with Ukrainian refugees or Ukrainian activists in Europe. So it's very, very difficult, and also like probably it's becoming better. I guess that those activists who moved in February, March, it was very difficult for them just to be, as I mentioned, that these colonial I don't know, colonial point of views somehow, they affect everyone, even anti-war Russians and even well, democratic Russians. And now it's somehow good for them to become in exile, to meet Ukrainians who are more pushed right now than Russians immigrants, and somehow to find the way to, well, to create the new, probably the way, the future world when Russia will communicate, Russian people will communicate with people from Ukraine, with people from Western Europe, with people from Sakartvelo, Armenia, and also Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and so on. So to see all this process, to support all good trends, and this is the support. But first of all, as I said, to support Ukraine.
How do you consider the West should do? How do you consider the West should do when Russian young men ask for asylum in order to escape being drafted? I think there are different different approaches to that. In the Baltic states and Poland, they often denied asylum for young drafted men, whereas perhaps in Germany or France it's different. So, and I don't know the Swedish approach. I really don't know.
Yes, it's a difficult question. Well, actually, me personally, I have a son who is 18 plus, so I just evacuated him as soon as possible. Just he avoided the mobilization, and so I feel more safe myself to work in Russia when my family is abroad. But at the same time, I totally understand the civil activists who are under pressure, under criminal cases or even administrative cases, who are trying to escape Russia. But regarding the mobilization, so personally, but it's my personal, so it's not official memorial's opinion. I usually say to these guys that, but try to do your best in Russian system of the law system. It's possible to avoid mobilization legally. It's important to protest openly, not to escape, but to protest. And if you protest, it works actually so far. The most of cases, and when you lose, if it still continues, well, then it's better to escape from Russia, but otherwise it's important to provoke Russian state and because so far there are so many men in Russia, so that it's not like everyone who is male is under big danger. So if you say no, okay, first no, the second no is okay, you go. So.
Okay, so one final question.
Okay, do you see activists, human rights coming back to Russia now because of their financial situation? It's expensive to live abroad, or some other reasons. Do you see something like that happening?
Well, I would say that it's sometimes it's strategic. And among my friends, I have friends who so they had a strategy to go away from Russia, to prepare the electoral campaign from abroad, and then come back to Russia in August, September, when we had an election on local level, to come to elections with the anti-war agenda, and to be pressed. They knew that will be some repressions on that, and then have time to escape. So like strategic cases, I do remember, but yeah, probably this happens, but not like, I would not say that it happens all the time.
Okay, so unfortunately, time flies when you're listening to interesting things. We have to